Let's talk about forbidden love. When hearts break the rules and cross enemy lines into betrayal. Because in love and war, the rules don't matter. Welcome to my Broken to Brave podcast. I'm Donna Barnes. Everyone is talking about the couple from the Coldplay concert, which I think it's because people want to live voyeuristically through other people or just are either so threatened by the idea of betrayal or seduced by the idea of betrayal. You know, honestly, a friend of mine asked me what I thought of that. And I thought, it was a concert. It wasn't televised. If they hadn't responded to it at all, none of this would have happened because nobody would have known. I mean, maybe anybody at the concert that knew them would know. But other than that, it's become a huge thing. They've now both lost their jobs. And it's an exact example of what happens. Wasn't it Shakespeare that said, when first you practice to deceive, right? In the 70s, there was a song called It's Sad to Belong to Someone Else When the Right One Comes Along. Look, a much younger me was definitely in that situation a couple of times where, because a much younger me was a serial monogamist. I always had to be in a relationship. I didn't want to be alone. But then I'd meet somebody that really swept me off my feet, but I would leave the first relationship. And I think that's the better thing to do. Years ago, I dated a guy that I just did not trust him. And all of my friends used to say to me, that's not like you. Why are you like that? And I said, I don't trust him. I just really I felt it that he was not faithful to me. And then, but fun guy, great guy, very charismatic, handsome. There was a lot of good about that relationship. But when we finally broke up, and we'd kind of gotten pre-engaged, he bought me, a beautiful ring that I actually designed. Yeah, I moved to Los Angeles and started talking to some people that knew him, and their jaws dropped. They were like, oh, you're a couple? Which was very revealing to me. We'd been together for 4 years, right? So, yeah, but my kind of point is then when I finally broke up with him, people came out of the woodworks to tell me stories about how they saw him with this girl and they saw him with that girl, and everybody seemed to have a story, but no one had told me. I, very clearly would have liked to have known that. And I said that to a couple of people, and the people that are really close to me said, well, if you did say you were going to marry him, we would have told you then, but we thought you'd figure it out. To that point, if you do know that there's someone that you're close to, their partner is cheating, you should tell them. Because, my best friend and I talked about that. I did What Would You Do years ago with John Quinones, right? And I had pitched a story about this. What do you do if you see someone significant other with somebody else? Do you tell them? It was a very popular What Would You Do? Oprah picked it up, right? That was my idea. And I didn't get to go on Oprah. Love Oprah, by the way, right? Just because I think she's changed so many people's lives. She brought therapy into their homes for the first time for a lot of people. But anyway, without getting off track, cheating, it became a really big topic. What would you do if you saw somebody's spouse with someone else? Do you tell? And my suggestion was, you should have a conversation with your friends and look, my best friend's been married to a wonderful man for 20 years now. But, I did this a decade ago, probably. She and I talked about it. And she said to me, yes, I definitely want to know. If you know something, I want to know. And I said, yeah, I want to know too, right? Because I frequently say ignorance is bliss when you're trying to get over something. But if you're in a relationship, you cannot be ignorant to what's going on because it's making you look, it's a disrespect thing. If everybody else knows that your partner is cheating and then you don't know, you're putting all those people in a bad situation to not tell, honestly, years ago, oh my gosh, I was friends with a couple. His wife was going to be away and she asked me to go have dinner. They were having dinner with kind of a famous couple, right? Older couple. She had specifically asked me to go in her place, largely so that her husband didn't take anybody else, right? And the wife of the couple that was really not friendly to me at all. Initially, we actually went to a Dodgers game. At some point, I said something about the wife, and she looked at me and said, you know her? And I said, yeah, she's a good friend of mine. We're very good friends, right? And she was like, oh, and I said, no, she asked me to come with, him today. And she said, oh, and then her whole attitude towards me changed. She thought I was his mistress. And she was very uncomfortable with it. So she wasn't friendly to me because she actually really liked his wife, but so did I, right? So like, then it was all good. But my kind of long-winded point there is that it's not just about you, right? You fall in love with somebody, you're crazy about them, you have amazing chemistry. If you don't belong to that person, you're involving so many other people in your deceit. And that's unfair. It's really uncomfortable for a lot of people to have to really be the cover for somebody who's cheating on somebody. You really would serve yourself better and to not put people around you in an awkward situation, to give your partner the respect of telling them that you've decided that you're done with the relationship and that you want to move on. You don't necessarily need to tell them that you met somebody else that you want to be with, because here's the whole reality of that. Again, in my personal life and in coaching, I know a lot of people who were married, fell for someone. Sometimes both people were married, fell for each other, left their respective spouses, then got married, but then also got divorced because, the man who marries his mistress leaves an opening in the position. I've always liked that saying. And it's the same thing as women, right? Because in one particular couple that were friends of mine, the woman actually went on to work on another project and fell in love with somebody else and left him for that person. And that is very frequent, right? It's a character thing. If they will cheat with you, they will cheat on you. That is 100% true. It's a character thing. You either are open to cheating or you're not. And now let's be honest too. Sometimes people are very faithful and loyal and not interested in cheating until they really connect with somebody. That changes things. And look, here's the whole thing about it. Love is a really powerful thing. Love is a drug, they call it, right? And it's really powerful when you connect with somebody on a love basis. But here's the whole rub of that too. True love takes a while to grow. I think frequently in the situation of coworkers, if you've been working together for a long time and then now you're together as a couple, yeah, that feels like a really deep, intimate relationship. You need to get out of your first relationships before you move your relationship forward. But, people think they're not going to get caught. They think it's easy. They can keep both. I mean, I know it's a whole lot more complicated once you're married and you have children. That's not something you can just break up with somebody and move on your merry way. It's a whole lot deeper than that. Unfortunately, marriages are contracts, right? And FYI, there's a divorce attorney that lives in my building that we're going to do a podcast together. So that'll be coming up soon. Marriage is a contract, and it's not so easy to get out of that contract if you now really fall for somebody else. But the heart wants what the heart wants. And unfortunately, if you give in to what the heart wants it more, right? It's like once you get a taste of love, you want it again and you want it again and you want it again. I've over the years known many couples, both in my personal life and coaching, that clients came to me because, I just recently had a married man come to me to get his mistress back, right? So I think that is, I hate to say, the norm. It's a lot easier to cheat than to get a divorce. Although, unfortunately, when it's blown up publicly like this now, you've really destroyed any other relationship, which I don't recommend. Especially if you have children, how you leave a relationship shows character. Trust needs to be earned. I always say you can give somebody the benefit of the doubt, but trust needs to be earned. What do you do if you now really trusted that person and now they've betrayed you publicly and blown up your relationship in a way that is unforgivable? Hard to get past. It really is. And I'm good at breakup coaching. If anybody's in that situation, I would be happy to help you get through it. But if you're the person that's in love with somebody else while you're committed to somebody, think long and hard about ending the relationship that you're committed to before you move forward in the relationship that you really want. Because the heart does want what the heart wants. And unfortunately, I think it's so hard to really connect with somebody. And I know for me, I'd rather be single than to be with somebody that I don't want to be with. I think that is a testament to the idea of really wanting that chemical connection with somebody. So if you have lost that in your committed relationship and now you found it with somebody else, I think that's amazing. And I don't think you should deprive yourself of that, but I think you need to be ethical about how you move into the new relationship. And I think the really fair thing to do is to sit your spouse down and just be honest with them and tell them, look, I don't say this to hurt you, but I feel like we've lost the love in our relationship, and I'd like to be separated at the very least so that I can explore other options. I think is a much healthier way to go about that. And yes, that's going to be hurtful, but it's not as hurtful of finding out after the fact that you've already done it without the respect of even having that conversation with your partner, your spouse, right? It is a respect thing. When you're sneaking around behind someone's back, and geez, if you publicly speak, like, because here's the whole thing too. I mean, years ago, I had a woman come to me for coaching to get her married boyfriend to leave his wife for her. And they'd been together for 4 years. And we spent the whole call talking about how wonderful he was. And I kept trying to empower her to leave him. And she was convinced that she could get him to leave his wife. And I flat out said to her, look, I don't say this to hurt you, but if he wanted to leave his wife, he would have done that by now. He's not going to leave his wife. She didn't want to hear that, right? And we got to the end and she said to me, do you think you can help me? And I said, can I be completely honest? And she said, please. And I said, I don't think you're going to let me help you. And she totally cracked up and was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. I mean, look, I see both sides of it. I really do. I am a hopeless romantic, and I think it's really hard to really connect with somebody. And the heart wants what the heart wants. And it's really tempting when you really connect with somebody. Maybe you've never connected with anybody like that ever before. I think that's how a lot of affairs happen, in that, you've never felt that way before. The whole trap of it, though, I mean, I recently had a guy come to me for coaching because his mistress left him. And she'd been married too, but she'd gotten divorced. And he was still married, and she wanted him to get married. He had a younger child, so he wasn't ready to do that yet. And she ended up leaving him because of it. And he was heartbroken about that, right? So, but I think that's a very common situation too. I mean, people stay in relationship because of kids. I frequently said your paradigm of relationships you get from your parents. So if you have unloving parents that sleep in separate bedrooms, it's not a good example of a loving couple. At the same time, his son had particular needs that he didn't think his wife would be there for. Without getting deeper into that story, that basis of a story is true. If you're both committed to other people, it creates a problem before the relationship even starts. You're not fully open and available to each other. You're attached to other people, especially if there's children involved and little children. So be really careful about what you mess up. Before you give in to your desire, really ask yourself, am I going to be okay if I lose my spouse? Can you afford to lose your spouse, right? Because divorce is expensive, right? And it's messy. Really do some soul searching and think about, are you done with your marriage? Are you really fully prepared to walk away from it? Because if you start cheating, that's probably what's going to happen. It's really hard to keep secrets like that completely quiet. So yeah, if you're having an affair and you're thinking about how to tell your partner, I think it's better that you say that you want to explore other people rather than copying to the fact that you've already done it, because that's a betrayal that you just can't get past. Leave me your comments if you can, right? Let me know. Are you having an affair? Do you want to have an affair? Did your partner have an affair and now you're really jilted and hurting? I would love to hear your thoughts. You can leave them anonymously if you don't want to out yourself. So thanks for watching. Like my video if you will, and leave me your comments. And I look forward to seeing you in my next episode.